Joining us now, the one and only Matt Taibbi. Of course, you can find his writings over on Substack, his journalistic stylings over on Substack. Great to see you, Matt.
Good to see you, Matt.
Great to see you both. Love the brick decor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Saagar wants you to also comment on the desk.
Yeah, look at this desk.
I'll give you an opportunity to do that now.
It's a great desk. Yeah, it's
Thank
really
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's basically prerequisite for coming on the show. So you have to like Saagar's desk. So you have a new, relatively dangerous post up titled, "Why Has Ivermectin Become a Dirty Word?" Some of our audience will have followed ivermectin. There's possibility that this is a very low-cost generic drug that could be effective in treating coronavirus. Indications are mixed. There are some studies that say yes, some scientists that say yes, some others that say no, and it's become extraordinarily controversial. Can you just talk about what we know about ivermectin and why it has become so controversial to the point that YouTube in particular has been banning some of the content and some of the discussion around this potentially effective drug for treating coronavirus?
So along with, dozens of other potential cures, researchers began looking at all sorts of possibilities for treating COVID-19 last year. And one among the very many was an antiparasitic drug that's a wonder drug in many other respects, this thing called ivermectin, which has been crucial in helping eliminate essentially diseases like river blindness. It's extremely effective against almost every form of sort of parasitic disease. And some people tried it in sort of small scale experiments involving COVID. There was an early study that showed that it had in vitro results in reducing the amount of virus, which meant essentially that it works in a test tube situation. Has absolutely no practical application, but it's like slightly promising. From that study, some doctors started prescribing it, in sort of off-label to patients as a last resort in some cases, and some said they believe they saw results, and it started to get a little bit of buzz in the scientific community. And what happened was by fall of last year, there were a number of studies that were being undertaken, and there were a few people who were such advocates for it that they started to say that this was definitely a cure or that it was potentially a miracle cure. And that's when YouTube started cracking down. In particular, they cracked down on a doctor named Pierre Corey, who testified before the Senate, and they actually took down Senate testimony when he used language. He called it a miracle treatment, which I think was probably what initially triggered them.
Right, and I think that surrounding all of this is this. Look, like I said, I don't know a goddamn thing about ivermectin. Krystal and I are both fully vaccinated, Moderna'd up, okay, just to be very clear here, and have been also have emphasized here that I think people should go out and get vaccinated. All that being said, I don't understand how we can have so much hubris at this point, especially after the lab leak theory, to say this is definitively true, this is definitively false, to the point where we are willing to censor actual doctors talking about medical information. Now, I listened to the full Bret Weinstein, Pierre Corey, Joe Rogan podcast, and I came away from that thinking that a grave injustice has been done. And once again, I have no idea if ivermectin is, useful or not against COVID. The discussion does seem to be something that is worth it, especially if it has been useful, at least according to them, to some people in India and some people in Mexico. I think from approaching it from the angle of, you guys screwed up lab leak, are you so sure you want to start censoring again, seems to be the best defense against this, man.
Yeah, and I think what's happened to this drug is that it's become sort of a fulcrum for a larger debate between populist and anti-populist, for lack of a better term. It's acquired the nickname of a populist treatment because all around the world there are people who are self-medicating with ivermectin, especially in South America. There have in some cases governments are actually giving this drug out, or foundations are giving them out by the tens of thousands doses of this stuff. And the medical authorities see, I think, this issue as a proxy for a larger debate over how much control patients should have over their own treatment. Should people be allowed to essentially treat themselves? Should they be allowed to order their doctors to give them a drug? That's what this is all about. And what's frustrating about it is that I think when YouTube or Facebook cracks down on the speech surrounding this a topic like this, it only fuels the resentment and mistrust of medical authorities and makes people even more likely to go out and self-medicate in a way that might not be productive.
Exactly right.
So that's what I think. That's what I've been focusing on with the story does any of this censorship really accomplish anything positive? Probably not. It's not logical in any way.
But I also feel like, because sometimes, I think we even made the case that Twitter bans and Facebook bans and YouTube bans, they don't even work, right? They have the Streisand effect. They draw even more attention to the very thing that you want people to not talk about. But even if that wasn't the case, I still think, as Saagar said, there should be a lot of skepticism of these really airtight, like, we know that this is debunked, we know that this is discredited, after the whole debacle of completely ruling out the lab leak theory, which now looks more plausible. We still don't know, but it's certainly a plausible potential explanation for how this pandemic started in the first place. So even if the bans were effective, because we've seen with Trump being banned, I know it's been pretty effective in decreasing interest in him and decreasing the spread of what he has to say. Even if it's effective, it's a very problematic thing to do, especially, YouTube, these aren't scientists. They've gotten it wrong in the past. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, like, why this particular drug? Why did this one thing become such a flashpoint? And I think part of the context here, too, that people have been focused on is, like, big pharmaceutical companies, they don't have a way to make a lot of money off of this drug because it's a generic. So there's a potential financial incentive to shutting down any discussion of what's going on here.
Yeah. So to answer the first question, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you both know in journalism, we don't know anything. I mean, we're not experts. And, at best, when a story like this breaks or something like COVID breaks, we're scrambling. We're calling experts as quickly as we can to get, some kind of explanation for what's going on. We don't have the means to determine what's absolutely true and what isn't. And, by the same measure, neither does Facebook nor YouTube. I mean, they do not have the expertise to be telling us what is correct and what isn't correct. And so when they make decisions like this and they make mistakes like the lab leak thing, it only underscores the fact that, truth is a moving target, and you can't always hit it on the nose, right? Even if you have the best intentions, it looks bad to try to clamp down on this or that, because you can never be completely sure in this business what's true and what isn't. So that's bad. In terms of why this drug in particular, I think there's a couple of reasons. Number one, when Trump said he was on hydroxychloroquine, it gave kind of the odor of right-wingness to any idea of using a repurposed cheap drug to combat COVID-19. And that's another thing that I think is very frustrating, is in this polarized media landscape we have, in some topics, things just kind of become left or right, and they lose their identity as anything else after that. And ivermectin sort of acquired a reputation as something that Republican politicians were interested in, and therefore I think it added to the degree to which it's been clamped down upon.
Yeah, and look, like we said, we don't know anything about the efficacy of this. I don't know anything about what Dr. Weinstein is saying around a lot of different stuff. I think that in general, debate is probably a good thing, and stifling it just seems to be incredibly Orwellian regarding all of this. So Matt, I am so thankful that we have people like you who actually write about this and say, like, hey, what the hell is going on here? Because there needs to be some actual journalistic integrity, investigation. It shouldn't just be a couple people on YouTube talking about it. Like, let's have a real debate. You want to ban something? Because banning something means that for sure that something is not worth it. And if you can prove that, then that's great. But as far as I can tell, I have not seen any proof with that regard yet.
Yeah, and I think it makes everybody in the business look bad when you have bans like this. Again, we absolutely don't know what the answers are, and with something like one of the things that's scariest to me is this idea of journalists being afraid to go near a topic.
Yes.
Because what ends up happening is you get this self-censorship situation where everybody kind of knows where the line generally is, but nobody knows exactly where it is. So what they'll do is they'll stay well short of it. And topics that are genuinely newsworthy, people will pull back from and just simply won't talk about, and that's a serious problem.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Let's be honest. This is scary.
We were nervous covering this with you today. There's no doubt about it.
This is our livelihood, but we have to do this, you know?
We thought the topic was important enough. Again, given all of us saying we don't know whether ivermectin works or not, listen to scientists on both sides of the debate, all of that. Don't just go out there and take ivermectin for the hell of it. And by the way, we think
vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. We did. We feel great.
Feeling good.
Go get vaccinated. But this idea that you're talking about of the self-censorship, of the way that people are so nervous, of the just hubris of censorship and banning certain ideas and banning discussion on certain things from these social media companies, when just within the last year, those, over-the-top proclamations of this is discredited, this is debunked, et cetera, have been shown to be completely hollow. I think that's the piece that was really important to talk about. Recommend everybody go and read your piece. It's very thoughtful, as always. Everybody go and subscribe to Matt on Substack. Always great to have you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me on. All right,
our pleasure.
Take care.
All right, everybody, thank you. We really appreciate it. If you want to go ahead and support us for taking a risk and talking about ivermectin, please do so.
It's actually, let me just say, this is actually literally the reason why we leaned into a subscription model versus just putting ourselves at the whims and mercy of YouTube. This is like perfect example of that, because
this is it.
Look, ultimately, if they, get rid of this video, if they suppress us in the algorithm, whatever, we know that you guys have our back and we're able to sustainably continue the business. So good actual case in point.
This is exactly why
we have things set up the way we do.
We structured this thing exactly for this reason. And in exchange for supporting us, you get the full show 1 hour early delivered to your inbox. You can listen to it also as well, completely uncut. We really appreciate all of your guys' support. You're the ones who are making this possible. The plaques are going to be here soon for those lifetime members.
They've arrived at my apartment.
They have arrived.
We just have to put them together.
Now we have to put it together. So that's going to be a fun little arts and crafts project. And you guys can see why I all failed art class in elementary school. Just kidding. It's a beautiful plaque that you guys are all going to see. Almost as nice as this guest. We really appreciate it. We're 100% powered by Supercast. We love you all so much. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys. See you back here tomorrow. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.